Hi, welcome to Ever Box Guitar Tuition. So, got another classic album inspection for you today. Now, this album I'm going to talk about wasn't released on February the 18th. I can't find a release date for it. So, I'm a feeling in my memory it came out in the spring, March, April probably of 1987. But I found I had a gap in January and February this year with albums, so I thought, well, I'll fit this one in here, and I'm going to be doing, obviously I've been doing a run of kind of shrapnel based albums, so we're looking at this one. It's back to front as usual, M.A.R.S Project Driver. If you go on my channel, you'll go down, you'll find like I did a sort of top 10 shrapnel albums a while back, and I think that this was one of them. So what is M.A.R.S Project Driver? So this was like a project put together by Mike Varney. I suppose it's kind of like a precursor to what Frontiers music does now, where they'll get 4 or 5 stellar musicians and they'll make an album. It's easy to do that now remotely. But I think originally when this was put together, it was intended to be, kind of maybe an ongoing thing. But why that wasn't to be, I don't know. But basically, you got Tommy Aldridge on drums and Rudy Zarzo on bass. To start off with, obviously stellar musicians. When I'm saying what happened, well, I think Whitesnake happened. That certainly happened. But at this point, they're not actually in Whitesnake. They're probably about to do that. I think the Whitesnake '87 album probably comes out around the time this album came out, so that would explain why they didn't carry on. On guitar, Tony McAlpine. So Tony McAlpine had done one album with Mike Varney, the Edge of Insanity album, which I covered last year. And he was probably wanting to break out into vocals. A lot of the shredders wanted vocal projects because they knew that what they were doing with the instrumental shred was so niche, really, and it would be unlikely that they'd find the commercial success they craved with that, or basically earn a living, really. And on vocals, the little known at the time, probably still a cool guy, Rob Rock, and we'll come with him in a bit. But he's sung with a band called Driver. He took that name, and he's also sung with Impellitteri. So the principal reason for me getting this album, I'd got Edge of Insanity, and I was like, I'm just Tony McAlpine's on, I've got to get it. And this was before he did his second solo album, Maximum Security, which we'll be looking at very soon. But basically, I think this is a great power metal record. Putting it out there, it's melodic power metal, and I think he's done really well. I think it's produced by Mike Varney at Prairie Sun Studios with Steve Fanato engineering. He's obviously overseen it. As usual with the shrapnel stuff at the time, the mix isn't great. I would put this, it doesn't sound as bad as Speed Metal Symphony that I reviewed a few weeks back. But is it one of the better sounding ones? It's in the kind of middling echelon. It's swamped in reverb, which is a real problem. But the actual artifacts on the sounds aren't as bad as they are on things like Racer X or Cacophony. But it opens up with Nations on Fire, 2 minutes and 52 seconds. I think it lays down its marker really quickly with this. It's just an up-tempo powerhouse metal track. And Rob Rock really, it took me a long while to kind of appreciate him. He has that what I call an aggressive, bombastic power metal style of singing, which is prevalent in the shrapnel albums. We talked recently about like the style of singing used on Cacophony, Racer X. It's great metal singing, but it's not. It's kind of got an aggressive edge to it that's not going to be everyone's liking. It hasn't got the kind of commercial smoothness that a Bruce Dickinson, Rob Halford or Jeff Tate can bring to proceedings. And Rob Rock fits into that mould, but I think he's got a richness to his voice, and he's got a melody, and he's really good. He's kind of like Dio-ish, but Dio at an aggressive level with metal screams. Really good. Obviously doesn't have stage well. It's just a fast pumping metaler. Great guitar solo by Tony McAlpine. He sort of trades off with himself a bit like Lightning Strikes Again, Dokken. He's a huge George Lynch fan, so he may have done that. But basically, McAlpine brings all his tricks to bear on his album. Fast alternate picking, sweet picked arpeggios, whammy bar dives, whammy bar slurring, pitch harmonics, two-handed tapping. It's all out there. Track 2, again, this is only 3 minutes and 1 second, Writings on the Wall. Again, this is pretty up-tempo. Great track. Great guitar solo. It's got a great pre-chorus, Rob Rock, can't forget what I saw, ready to burn, really cool. Really good chorus. I think the writing of the songs is credited to all four musicians. I suspect McAlpine's written a lot of the music for this, and then Rob Rock's done the other stuff. I think sort of people like, I think McAlpine deserves credit amongst the shredder community because he knows how to write sort of simple progressions that create good lifts. And his instrumental style of writing is really influential. I mean, he actually wrote some tracks for the Joey to Follow on. Not that he's credited on that, but they must have done some kind of deal on the first Joey to Follow one, which is kind of the end of the instrumental cycle of Shrapnel in some ways. But Writing on the Wall's a great track. And then you got Stand Up and Fight. This is great as well. It's got a brilliant keyboard intro, baroque. He's got a, you know, type of rhythm. Really, really big chorus, anthemic chorus. I mean, this may be the best track so far, but the three cracking tracks and the 3 minutes 48. The solo on this is the money solo so far. Tony does absolutely brilliant arpeggio sort of section. Rob Rock's great. The drums and bass are as brilliant as you'd expect. I mean, Tommy Aldridge is a drummer who plays on 10, and like, you know, there's been sometimes the criticisms, oh, he shouldn't have done the Thin Lizzy thing because it's not right for him, and I agree with that. But if you want like a drummer who's powerful and on it, it's great. Obviously, Rudy Sarzo's fantastic. So this is really good. Then you've got the album's kind of the odd track out, because this track's 6 minutes 15. All the rest are really short. Album's only 35 minutes, but it's Nostradamus, not the Judas Priest. But it's got a long keyboard intro Tony does, which is really nice. And it's cool power metal track. It's got a cool verse with like a lush sort of little picked arpeggiated line by Tony. It's got odd time signatures. Yeah, is it 10/8, I think? When it comes out of the chorus, it's got like a keyboard line. Don't quote me on that, listen to it. I think it's 10 beats, but anyway. But I like this track, not as much as the other ones, but it's different. The album, it comes at the right time in the album. We've kind of had 3 up-tempo, energised tracks. It's cool. Tony kind of stretches out a bit more on the solo. It's a bit weird. And the end's really good. It's got a pumping bass. And you can hear just a little kind of hammer on pull-off guitar line in the back. So that's side one. You know, when I listened to this recently, I was just like, to be honest with you, I was in like a pretty grumpy mood, and it really lifted me spirits. I don't know what it is about this album, but I just really, really like it. Our side 2 opens with Unknown Survivor. So this is the mirror image of side 1, basically. It's like Nations on Fire. It's fast up tempo, 3:38. Just looking at the times there. It's great, really fucking pounding drums, pardon my French. Rob Rock on it, good chorus. I mean, all the titles of the songs are pretty good. You know, Unknown Survivor, it just fits in, you know, what's it, Unknown Survivor, 5 syllables across the 2 words, you know. They're catchy, and they get in your head. And then Tony McAlpine does a top solo. He does this great little tapping thing that kind of moves through the changes. Really cool. And then track 6, probably my favourite track. So this is the most commercial track on the album. You know, if you listen to this track and had better production, the problem with this album is the mix. It's not the sounds. It's getting the mix polished and getting that reverb down. But I think with the Shrapnel way of recording, they basically recorded quickly and they hoped they could kind of mask the cheapness of the recording with effects. But the problem is they, so what I'm looking for, the quality, the deficiencies in the recording get magnified by those effects. But starts with a drum intro, really melodic. It's called Fantasy. How many tracks can you name called Fantasy? The bands: Fantasy Coney Hatch, Fantasy Aldo Nova, Fantasy Bonfire, Fireworks. That's another album from '87. Maybe we might do that. But yeah, this is a great track, Fantasy. Love the chorus, really good. Great verse, great pre-chorus again. McAlpine's written really cool verses, bridges, chorus. It's not like, oh, the chorus is good, the other bits aren't. Does a brilliant solo with a great shredding bit, and it's short as well. Punchy's solo. You know, he's doing rock radio length solos at times on this. Well, maybe stretching out a bit, but great track. Track 7's the weak track. This is the one that kind of doesn't really come up to the level of the others. It's Slave to My Touch. If the others weren't so good, you know, maybe I'd be more into this. The solo's not quite as good. It's just, it's the one kind of hollow note. And then track 8's another killer track. It's a bit longer, 4:31, basically because Tony does a ripping intro solo, a ripping end solo. His intro and outro solos is actually phenomenal. I Can See It in Your Eyes. Again, great, kind of catchy American rock, commercial American hard rock verse into the chorus. I think the kind of heaviness, the power metalness of the music kind of can take you away from the fact that if it were produced a different way, played a different way, you know, there would be more commercial. But that's the Shrapnel sound. Shrapnel has those aggressive, bombastic vocals I've spoken about. They have like this production style. And his attempt for them to do more commercial sounding stuff, but they kind of know their audience, you know. I don't think Mike Varney, he probably would have loved a Music for Nations style Breakout album, or Megaforce album, Metallica. But he kind of knew he could sell 100,000 if he kept his audience happy, and he does. So I Can See It in Your Eyes, yeah, this is a great track. And the outro solo, like I said before, Tony does like an amazing arpeggio, and he kind of comes into a whammy, and, you know, he's on fire. And then the last track is the really classy power ballad, You and I. Again, Rob Rock does a tremendous vocal on this. This is, you know, it's commercial hard rock style, but the power metal sound production, beautiful solo. Again, Tony just sits back, thinks more like a Neil Schon, but with some McAlpine runs, and does a great radio length solo. Fade out on this, you know, lovely vocals. Really good. Like I say, all I can think is there may have been, maybe the musicians didn't get on as well, but all, you know, Rudy Zars and Tom Aldridge went into Whitesnake. I think McAlpine, when he did the Eyes of the World album, he wanted to go for more AOR, he wanted more of a Steve Walsh singer, so maybe Rob Rock wasn't it for him. Rob Rock went on to sing with Impellitteri. But to sort of contextualise Rob Rock, you know, if Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler wanted to do some Dio era Sabbath, you know, Rob Rock could sing that, and we'd all be, although not completely happy, we'd probably be accepting of it because we wanted to hear that music. That would be sort of putting that into context, I think. But this is a great record. It's kind of one of those unsung supergroup records that only kind of Shred fans have, but I think it's better than that. I think if you like commercial heavy metal that's really well played and you can get past the production, then this is an album well worth checking out. Like I say, it's 35 years old soon. M.A.R.S Project Driver. So thanks for checking that out. Cheers.